Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Aurora's edge and stared at the massive structure floating in space before them. The alien station was bigger than anything humans had ever built. It looked like a giant crystal that caught starlight and threw it back in colors that hurt to look at for too long. The thing was easily the size of Earth's moon, but it moved with purpose through the dark void between stars. "How long has it been out here?" Jake asked his science officer, Dr. Lisa Grant, who was bent over her instruments with excitement written all across her face. Her fingers danced over controls as numbers and graphs filled her screens faster than any human should be able to read them. "The energy readings suggest it's been here for millions of years, Captain," Lisa said without looking up from her work. "But here's the strange part, it's still fully operational. Whatever built this thing knew how to make technology that lasts forever." Security Chief Ryan Cooper shifted his weight from one foot to the other as he watched the alien structure through the main viewing screen. His hand rested on his weapon out of habit, even though they were still safely aboard their own ship. "Any signs of life over there?" he asked. Engineer Katie White looked up from her console where she had been trying to make sense of the power signatures coming from the station. "The energy output is incredible," she said. "It's generating more power than our entire home system produces, but I can't figure out how it's doing it." Communications Officer Ben Taylor had been quiet this whole time as he tried to scan for any signals coming from the mysterious structure. Suddenly his console came alive with sounds and lights. "Captain," he said with surprise in his voice, "I'm getting something. It's not just a signal someone's trying to talk to us." Jake felt his heart speed up as he moved to Ben's station. First contact with alien intelligence was something humanity had dreamed about for centuries, but now that it was happening, he felt scared and excited at the same time. "Put it through," he ordered. The main screen flickered and then showed something that made everyone on the bridge take a step back. A figure appeared that looked almost human, but not quite right. She was tall and graceful with skin that seemed to glow from within. Her eyes held depths that suggested she had seen things no human could imagine. When she spoke, her voice was warm and musical, but there was something ancient about it. "Welcome, children of Earth," the being said with what seemed like real happiness. "I am Vera, and I have been waiting for your kind for a very long time. I have prepared something special for you, but I must give you a warning first." Jake found his voice and stepped forward. "I'm Captain Jake Morrison of the Earthship Aurora's Edge. We come in peace and hope to learn about your people." Vera smiled, but there was sadness in her expression. "My people are gone, Captain Morrison. I am what remains of them, and I guard this station until someone worthy comes along. That someone appears to be you and your crew." "What kind of warning?" Dr. Grant asked, unable to contain her scientific curiosity. Vera turned to look directly at the science officer. "I am about to open the doors to the central chamber of this station. What lies within is not meant for mortal minds to see. Do not look into that room when the doors open. The knowledge contained there has driven countless species to madness or worse." As she spoke these words, a deep humming sound began to fill the space around them. Even through the vacuum of space and the hull of their ship, the crew could feel vibrations that seemed to reach into their bones. On the viewing screen, they watched as massive doors on the alien station began to slide open with slow, deliberate movements. Light poured out of the opening like liquid fire. It was not normal light, but something that seemed alive and full of meaning. The glow was so intense that their ship's viewing screen automatically dimmed to protect their eyes, but they could still see the brilliant radiance spilling out into space. "Why are you opening it if we shouldn't look?" Katie asked with confusion. Clear in her voice, Vera's expression became impossible to read. Her features shifted slightly as if she was deciding how much truth to tell them. "Because, Captain Morrison, your species has never been good at following such warnings. In all my years of watching the galaxy develop, I have learned that humans do not simply accept being told no without understanding why." Ryan frowned as he studied the alien being on their screen. "That sounds like you want us to look even though you're telling us not to." "Perhaps," Vera said, and now there was definitely something like hope in her voice. Your people have a reputation that has reached even this remote corner of space. You are known for your curiosity and your refusal to accept limitations. Other species call this foolishness, but I wonder if it might be something else entirely. The doors to the central chamber were now fully open, and the light streaming out had settled into patterns that seemed almost like writing or mathematics made visible. Ben's instruments were picking up signals unlike anything in their databases. The energy was definitely artificial, but it carried information in ways their technology could barely detect, let alone understand. What happens if we do look? Jake asked. Most species who have found this place over the millions of years since it was built have heeded my warning completely, Vera explained. A few have looked despite my words and been destroyed by what they saw. Their minds could not process the information contained within. But you think humans might be different, Lisa said as she continued to take readings from her position. I hope you are different, Dr. Grant. The galaxy has been waiting for a species strong enough and flexible enough to inherit what my people left behind. Every test we devised has been passed by only one species, and that species has never appeared. Until now. Jake looked around at his crew and saw the same mixture of fear and excitement on all their faces that he felt in his own chest. They had come out here to explore and discover new things. Now they faced a choice that could change everything, for humanity or destroy them completely. The doors are open, Vera said quietly. The choice is yours to make. Dr. Lisa Grant could not stop herself from moving closer to the viewing screen as the strange light continued to pour out of the alien station's central chamber. Every instinct she had as a scientist screamed at her to investigate and understand what she was seeing. The energy readings on her instruments were unlike anything in human knowledge, and the patterns in the light seemed to shift and change as if they were alive. Captain, she said without taking her eyes off the display, I need to get closer to that station. My instruments are picking up data streams that shouldn't be possible. Whatever is in that chamber is broadcasting information on frequencies we didn't even know existed. Jake Morrison felt the weight of command pressing down on him as he watched his science officer's excitement grow. He knew Lisa well enough to recognize the look in her eyes. She would find a way to investigate this mystery with or without his permission. What kind of information? He asked. I can't tell from here, Lisa replied as her fingers moved rapidly over her controls, trying to make sense of the readings. But Captain, the complexity is incredible. It's like looking at the mathematical foundations of reality itself. Ryan Cooper moved to stand beside his captain and spoke in a low voice. Sir, this feels like a trap. Why warn us not to look and then leave the doors wide open? It doesn't make sense unless she wants us to do exactly what she's telling us not to do. Maybe that's exactly the point, Katie White said from her engineering station. Maybe the warning is part of the test. Think about it. Humans have always been the species that pokes things to see what happens even when someone tells us not to. Ben Taylor looked up from his communications console with worry written across his face. I'm picking up massive data flows from the station now that the chamber is open. Whatever's in there is definitely trying to communicate, but it's using methods our technology can barely detect. Vera's image on the main screen watched them discuss their options with what looked like patient interest. You may approach the station if you wish, she said. I will provide safe passage for your ship and your crew. But remember my warning about looking into the central chamber. Jake made his decision. Ben, take us closer but keep us at a safe distance. Lisa, I want full sensor sweeps of everything. Katie, monitor our systems for any interference. Ryan, be ready for anything. The Aurora's edge moved slowly toward the massive alien structure, and as they got closer, the true size of the thing became clear. It was not just big, it was impossibly huge with surfaces that seemed to bend space around them. The crystal-like material it was made from reflected their ship's lights but also generated its own illumination from within. Docking bay opening on the lower section, Ben reported as they watched a portion of the station's hull slide away to reveal a space large enough for their entire ship. Take us in, Jake ordered, and soon they were surrounded by the alien structure. The docking bay sealed itself around them, and atmosphere readings showed breathable air outside their ship. How does it know what we need to breathe? Katie wondered out loud as she checked the environmental readings. Because we have been studying your species for some time, Vera's voice said over their communication system. You may leave your ship. Safely, I will meet you in the central chamber. Jake led his team through the airlock and into the alien station. The corridors were huge and filled with a soft light that seemed to come from the walls themselves. Everything was built on a scale that made humans feel very small, but somehow, the proportions felt welcoming rather than threatening. They followed the main corridor toward the center of the station, and with each step the light grew brighter and the sense of vast knowledge grew stronger. Lisa's portable scanner was going crazy with readings she had never seen before. Ryan kept his weapon ready but found no threats to focus on. Katie marveled at the engineering required to build something this massive, while Ben tried to understand the complex data streams flowing through the station systems. When they reached the central chamber, they found Vera waiting for them. In person, she was even more striking than she had appeared on their screen. She stood, nearly 8 feet tall, with features that were beautiful but clearly not human. Her skin had a pearl-like quality that reflected light in impossible ways. Welcome to the heart of our greatest creation, she said as she gestured toward the opening behind her. Beyond this threshold lies the accumulated knowledge of my people and many others who have contributed to this repository over millions of years. Jake looked past her into the chamber and felt his breath catch in his throat. The space beyond was filled with swirling patterns of light and energy that seemed to contain information in pure form. It was like looking at thought itself made visible. The patterns shifted and flowed in ways that hurt to follow, but also drew the eye deeper and deeper into their complexity. What are your people called? Lisa asked as she fought the urge to step forward and examine the energy patterns more closely. We called ourselves the Architects, Vera replied. We built this station and others like it as tests for younger species. We wanted to find races capable of inheriting our knowledge and our responsibilities. What responsibilities? Jake asked. Though part of him already suspected the answer would change everything for humanity. The protection of all life in this galaxy, Vera said simply. There are forces that threaten existence itself, and they require guardians who can understand cosmic truth without being destroyed by it. Ryan stepped forward with his military training, making him focus on practical concerns. How many species have taken this test before us? Thousands, Vera answered. Most heeded my warning and never looked into the chamber. They returned to their homeworlds unchanged. A few looked despite my words and were driven mad by what they saw. Their minds could not process the information. And the ones who looked and understood, Katie asked. They became paralyzed by the weight of cosmic knowledge, Vera explained with sadness in her voice. Understanding the true nature of reality and the threats facing all life crushed their spirits. They gave up their growth and exploration to contemplate what they had learned. Lisa could no longer contain herself. But you think humans might be different? I hope you are Dr. Grant. Your species has shown remarkable adaptability and resilience. You face impossible situations and find ways to overcome them. Most importantly, you refuse to accept that anything is truly impossible. Jake looked at his crew and saw the same determination he felt building in his own chest. They had not come this far to turn back now. What happens if we look and we can handle what we see? Then you become the inheritors of everything my people built, Vera said. You gain access to technologies and knowledge that could lift your species to heights you cannot imagine. But you also accept the burden of protecting life itself from threats beyond your current understanding. The captain of the Aurora's Edge looked into the swirling energies of the central chamber and made his choice. We didn't come out here to play it safe, he said. Show us what you've got. The moment Jake Morrison stepped into the central chamber, everything changed. The swirling patterns of energy and light that had seemed beautiful from a distance now surrounded him and his crew completely. Information flowed past them in streams of pure data that somehow bypassed their eyes and entered their minds directly. Lisa gasped as mathematical concepts she had never imagined suddenly made perfect sense, while Katie found herself understanding engineering principles that should have taken decades to learn. Ryan felt the weight of cosmic history pressing against his consciousness as images of ancient civilizations flashed through his mind. Billions of years of galactic development compressed into moments of revelation that would have destroyed weaker minds. Ben experienced the sensation of being connected to communication networks that spanned entire star systems as alien languages became as clear to him as his native English, but instead of being overwhelmed by the flood of knowledge, the human crew adapted with a speed that amazed even Vera, their minds bent and stretched to accommodate new information while their essential humanity remained intact. Where other species had either rejected the knowledge completely or been consumed by it, humans found a middle path that allowed them to grow without losing themselves. Incredible, Vera whispered as she watched them process information that had broken the minds of countless other beings. You are not just surviving the revelation, you are integrating it into your existing understanding. Jake found himself seeing the galaxy as it really was for the first time. The pretty lights in Earth's night sky were revealed as vast civilizations locked in struggles for survival against forces that existed between dimensions. He saw the rise and fall of species that had built wonders beyond imagination only to be destroyed by threats they could not comprehend. But he also saw hope in the form of the architects and their long plan to find guardians worthy of their legacy. The knowledge is just the beginning, Vera explained as the crew's minds expanded to accommodate cosmic truth. Now you must prove that you can act upon what you have learned. 3 trials await you, and each one has destroyed species that made it this far. The central chamber shifted around them as the first trial began. Suddenly they found themselves standing in a massive mechanical space filled with alien technology that sparked and smoked with obvious damage. Warning lights flashed in colors that had no names while alien text scrolled across displays faster than normal minds could read. The station's primary power core is failing, Vera announced as the crisis simulation unfolded around them. You have 1 hour to repair the damage using only the resources available in this chamber. Failure means the death of every living being currently aboard the station. Lisa immediately moved to examine the alien machinery while Katie began tracing power conduits with an engineer's eye. The technology was unlike anything they had seen before, but somehow the knowledge they had absorbed in the central chamber allowed them to understand its basic principles. This shouldn't be possible, Lisa muttered as she identified the problem. The quantum matrix has destabilized, but the safeguards that should prevent total failure have been deliberately disabled. It's a test, Ryan realized as he helped Katie access a maintenance panel. They want to see how we solve problems under pressure. What followed was a display of human ingenuity that impressed even the ancient consciousness of the architects. Where other species had tried to repair the alien technology using their own methods or had attempted to understand every detail before acting, humans simply got to work. They combined their existing knowledge with the new information they had gained and improvised solutions that the architects had never considered. Katie rewired power systems in ways that should have been impossible, while Lisa recalibrated quantum field generators using principles she had learned only minutes before. Ben established emergency communication protocols between damaged computer systems, and Ryan organized their efforts with military precision. Jake coordinated everything while making split-second decisions based on incomplete information. With only minutes to spare, they brought the power core back online. But instead of simply restoring it to its original configuration, they had improved it. The efficiency was higher and the design was more stable than what the architects had originally built. Fascinating, Vera said as the simulation ended. Not only did you succeed where others failed, but you made our technology better in the process. The second trial materialized around them without warning. They found themselves looking down at a primitive planet where a young civilization was about to be destroyed by a cosmic disaster. At the same time, they could see a vast library containing the collected knowledge of 100 extinct species that would also be lost if they chose to save the planet. You cannot save both, Vera explained. The energy required to move the planet to safety would destroy the knowledge repository. The power needed to preserve the library would leave the primitive species to die. Choose wisely. Jake felt the weight of moral responsibility crushing down on him as he looked at both scenarios. Millions of innocent lives hung in the balance, along with knowledge that could benefit the entire galaxy. Other species had chosen based on cold logic or pure emotion, but humans rarely accepted that there were only two options in any situation. There's always a third choice, Jake said as he studied both problems simultaneously. Lisa, what if we use the planet's own magnetic field to create a temporary shield while we compress the library data into quantum storage? That's insane, Katie said, but she was already working out the engineering requirements. The power requirements would be enormous and the timing would have to be perfect. Insane plans are what humans do best, Ryan added as he began calculating the risks involved. What followed was the most complex operation any of them had ever attempted. They used the station's own systems to create a massive energy web that protected the planet while simultaneously downloading petabytes of information into compressed storage matrices. The plan required perfect timing and coordination between all 5 crew members working at the limits of their abilities. When it was over, both the planet and the knowledge repository were safe. They had refused to accept the false choice and found a solution that saved everything worth saving. No species has ever attempted such a solution, Vera said with what sounded like amazement. You risked everything on a plan that could have failed catastrophically. That's what makes it worth doing, Jake replied. The third trial was the most dangerous of all. Ryan found himself standing before a strange device that pulsed with energy patterns similar to those in the central chamber but far more intense. You must interface directly with the consciousness of the architects, Vera explained. Your mind will be connected to the collective knowledge and memory of our entire species. Most beings who attempt this are destroyed by the experience or emerge as something no longer recognizably themselves. Ryan looked at his crewmates and saw the concern in their eyes. Someone has to do it, he said. My military training taught me how to stay focused under extreme conditions. If anyone can handle this, it's me. The interface process was unlike anything Ryan had ever experienced. His consciousness expanded beyond the boundaries of his physical brain as he became connected to minds that had lived for millions of years. He experienced the memories of the architects as they discovered the first signs of the void seekers and watched their civilization prepare for a war that would span dimensions. But where other species had been consumed by the vastness of architect memory, Ryan held on to his essential humanity. His military discipline allowed him to compartmentalize the experience, while his human adaptability helped him process information that should have been incomprehensible. When he emerged from the interface, he was changed but not broken. The knowledge of the architects lived within his mind, but he remained recognizably human. I know what we're really up against, he said to his crew, and I know why they've been waiting for us. The station around them began to change as Ryan shared what he had learned from his connection with the architects. Walls that had seemed solid became transparent to reveal vast chambers filled with technology that defied human understanding. Corridors stretched away in directions that seemed to bend space itself, while new passages opened to grant them access to areas that had been sealed for millions of years. You have passed the trials, Vera said, and her voice carried a weight of emotion that had been absent before. The station recognizes you as worthy inheritors of the architect legacy. You are the first species to succeed where countless others have failed. Jake felt the magnitude of what she was saying settle over him like a heavy cloak. What exactly are we inheriting? He asked as he watched incredible machines come to life around them. Everything, Vera replied simply. Technologies that could advance your species by millions of years. Weapons capable of fighting enemies that exist partially outside normal space and time. Communication networks that span the entire galaxy, and knowledge that could unlock the deepest mysteries of existence itself. Lisa moved toward a console that had materialized beside her and gasped as information began flowing directly into her mind. She could suddenly understand scientific principles that human physics had only dreamed about. Energy manipulation techniques that could power entire star systems. Methods of faster-than-light travel that made their current technology look like stone tools. "This is incredible," she whispered as equations and theories filled her consciousness. "Captain, with this knowledge, we could solve every energy problem Earth has ever faced. We could cure diseases that have plagued humanity for centuries. We could reach any point in the galaxy in a matter of days." Katie found herself interfacing with engineering systems that responded to her thoughts rather than her hands. The architect technology seemed to anticipate her needs and adapt itself to work with human intuition in ways the original designers had never intended. The engineering principles here could revolutionize everything we know about building and creating, she said with excitement. "But more than that, I think I can actually improve on some of these designs." Ben discovered that the communication networks, awakening throughout the station, connected to monitoring posts scattered across hundreds of star systems. Suddenly, he could hear the electronic voices of civilizations he had never known existed. "There are species out there that have been waiting for this moment," he reported. "The activation of this station is sending signals across the galaxy." But even as they marveled at their inheritance, Ryan's knowledge of what the architects had faced cast a shadow over their celebration. "The good news is that we now have access to weapons and defenses that can protect entire star systems," he said grimly. "The bad news is that we're going to need them sooner than we'd like." Vera's expression became serious as she confirmed Ryan's fears. "The Void Seekers are ancient enemies of life itself. They exist in the spaces between dimensions and they consume reality wherever they find it. My people fought them for millions of years before we were finally defeated." "What are they exactly?" Jake asked as he tried to understand an enemy unlike anything in human experience. "Imagine entropy given consciousness and purpose," Vera explained. "They are drawn to organized matter and energy like parasites drawn to a healthy host. Where they appear, space itself begins to break down and the laws of physics become suggestions rather than rules." Katie looked up from the engineering console she had been exploring. "If they're so dangerous, how did the architects fight them for so long?" "Through careful preparation and the technologies you are now inheriting," Vera replied. "We learned to detect their dimensional intrusions before they could fully manifest in our reality. We built weapons that could damage entities existing in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Most importantly, we created this network of monitoring stations to provide early warning when they began to stir." Lisa was studying readouts that showed energy patterns across nearby star systems. "According to these sensors, there are reality distortions forming in at least 3 systems within 50 light-years of here. The patterns match what Ryan absorbed from the architect memories. The activation of this station has drawn their attention," Vera confirmed. "They know that their ancient enemy's technology is active again, and they are probing the barriers between dimensions to find the source." Jake felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders as he realized what this meant. They could take the knowledge they had gained and flee back to Earth, hoping to prepare humanity for what was coming. Or they could accept the role the architects had prepared for them and become the galaxy's first line of defense against an enemy that threatened all existence. "How much time do we have?" he asked. "Not long," Ryan answered as his enhanced awareness picked up disturbances in local space. "I can feel them pressing against the dimensional barriers. They're definitely coming, and they're not happy about finding active architect technology. The decision was made for them when alarms began sounding throughout the station." Ben's communication equipment picked up distress signals from the nearest inhabited system as reality itself began to fray around the edges. Ships were reporting impossible phenomena as space twisted in ways that violated every known law of physics. "The Corvani system," Vera said as she identified the source of the distress calls. 3 billion souls, and they have no defense against what is coming for them. Katie was already working with the station's engineering systems to bring defensive weapons online. These barrier generators could create a protective field around their entire star system, she said. But someone would need to get close enough to the Void Seekers to target them properly. That someone would be us? Jake realized. The Aurora's Edge was still docked within the station, and with the architect upgrades they could survive encounters that would destroy any normal ship. Lisa looked up from her scientific analysis with excitement and terror warring in her expression. Captain, the knowledge I've absorbed suggests that we might be able to do more than just fight them defensively. There could be a way to seal the dimensional rifts they use to enter our reality. That would trap some of them in normal space where they can be fought with conventional weapons, Ryan added as his tactical training merged with architect knowledge. To suggest new possibilities, Vera watched them plan and prepare for a battle. Unlike anything humanity had ever faced, and she felt something she had not experienced in millions of years: hope. Other species would spend decades preparing for such a confrontation, she observed. You are ready to face cosmic horror with a few hours of preparation and weapons you barely understand. That's because we don't have a choice, Jake replied, as he moved toward the exit. People are dying right now, and we're the only ones who can help them. As they made their way back to their ship, they could feel the station around them continuing to awaken. Vast machines that had slept for eons were coming online while communication arrays reached out across the galaxy to alert other monitoring posts that the long watch was finally over, but they also felt something else pressing against the edges of reality. The Void Seekers had found them, and they were coming with hunger that had been building for millions of years. The final test was about to begin, and this time failure would mean more than just the end of their mission. It would mean the end of everything. The Aurora's Edge shot through space toward the Corvani system with modifications that should have been impossible. Katie had managed to integrate architect technology into their human ship in ways that amazed even Vera. The engines now moved them through dimensions that normal matter could not access, while shields protected them from forces that existed outside conventional physics. Reading massive spatial distortions ahead, Ben reported as they approached the system under attack. It's like reality is being pulled apart at the seams. Through the viewing screen they could see what the Void Seekers really were. Dark tears and space itself hung between the planets like wounds that bled entropy into normal reality. Around each rift space twisted and bent in ways that hurt to look at, while matter simply ceased to exist wherever the distortions touched. 3 billion people down there, Lisa said as she monitored the chaos below. Their ships are trying to evacuate, but most of their technology simply stops working when it gets too close to the rifts. Jake watched Corvani vessels spinning helplessly as their engines failed and their navigation systems gave impossible readings. Ryan, what are we looking at tactically? The Seekers aren't fully materialized yet, Ryan replied as his enhanced senses analyzed the dimensional intrusions. They're still mostly existing in their home dimension while they probe ours. But every second they stay here, they become more solid and more dangerous. Katie was working frantically at her modified engineering station as she tried to understand how to fight an enemy that barely existed in their reality. The architect weapons are responding to the threat, she reported. But targeting something that exists in 11 dimensions simultaneously is going to be tricky. I'm detecting 7 major intrusion points, Ben announced as his enhanced communication abilities picked up dimensional static from across the system. Each one is getting stronger, and I'm reading smaller rifts opening around the main ones. Vera's voice came through their communication system from back at the station. You must act quickly. Once the Seekers establish permanent rifts in your reality, they become almost impossible to remove. They will spread throughout this system and then beyond until all of local space is consumed. Jake made his decision. Katie, bring us close to the largest rift. Lisa, I need you to figure out how to use these architect sensors to get targeting data on something that's mostly not there. Ben, coordinate with the Corvani fleet and get their people as far away from the distortions as possible. Ryan, you're with me. We're going to see if human stubbornness works on cosmic horrors. What followed was unlike any battle in human history. The Aurora's Edge danced between dimensional rifts while firing weapons that existed in multiple realities simultaneously. Lisa discovered that human intuition allowed her to track void seekers in ways architect computers had never managed, while Katie kept their impossible weapons functioning through pure engineering instinct. The first major success came when Ryan identified a weakness in how the seekers manifested in normal space. They have to anchor themselves to something real, he realized. If we can disrupt those anchor points, we can force them back into their home dimension. Jake immediately saw the tactical possibilities. Ben, tell the Corvani fleet to concentrate. All their fire on the space around the rifts, not the rifts themselves? Katie, can you modify our weapons to target the anchor points Ryan is seeing? Already on it, Captain, Katie replied as she made adjustments to systems she was learning to use even as she modified them. Human engineering principles seemed to work better with this technology than whatever the architects originally intended. The battle turned when Lisa made a discovery that would have taken other species years to achieve. Captain, I think I can reverse the polarity of their dimensional rifts. Instead of them using the tiers to enter our reality, we could use them to push the seekers back where they came from. Do it, Jake ordered without hesitation. What Lisa attempted should have been impossible. She was trying to turn weapons designed for one purpose into tools for dimensional manipulation while under fire from enemies that existed partially outside of time. But human adaptability combined with architect technology in ways neither species had ever imagined. The first rift collapsed with a sound like reality sighing in relief. The void seeker that had been emerging through it was cut in half, with one portion trapped in normal space, where Corvani weapons could actually damage it, while the other part was banished back to its home dimension. It's working, Ben reported, with excitement as he watched the readings from across the system. The smaller rifts are destabilizing now that we've closed one of the major ones, but the success came with a price. The remaining void seekers were now fully aware that they faced opposition capable of harming them. The entities that had spent eons consuming realities without serious resistance suddenly found themselves in an actual fight. Katie's console exploded in sparks as alien energies overloaded systems that had never been designed to handle such stresses. They're adapting, she warned. Each attack they make is different from the last one. So we adapt faster, Jake replied as he coordinated their response to threats that changed from moment to moment. The final phase of the battle was won through pure human determination to succeed despite impossible odds. When their weapons began to fail, Ryan used his connection to architect knowledge to turn the Aurora's Edge itself into a weapon. When their shields collapsed, Lisa used the ship's sensor array to create interference patterns that confused seeker targeting systems. When their engines started to overload, Ben coordinated with Vera back at the station to channel power through the galaxy-spanning communication network. The turning point came when Jake realized they could use the Seeker's own nature against them. They feed on organized matter and energy, he said as understanding dawned. What happens if we give them something that looks organized but is actually chaos? Working together, they created what Lisa later described as a dimensional feedback loop. They used architect technology to make the remaining rifts appear to contain the organized reality the Seekers craved, while actually channeling pure entropy back into the creature's home dimension. The result was spectacular. One by one, the remaining rifts collapsed as the Void Seekers retreated from what they perceived as a toxic environment. The last major rift closed with such force that it created a permanent seal preventing future intrusions in this system. Incredible, Vera's voice came through their communications filled with amazement. In a single battle you have accomplished what took my people centuries to achieve. You have not just defeated the Void Seekers, you have found a way to permanently close their access routes to normal space. Jake looked around at his exhausted crew as they surveyed the aftermath of their victory. The Corvani system was safe, and already the local inhabitants were sending messages of gratitude that Ben was translating in real time. But more importantly, they had proven that humanity could face cosmic threats and emerge victorious through adaptation and determination. This is just the beginning, isn't it? Katie said as she worked to repair the damage their ship had sustained. The galaxy has new guardians, Vera confirmed. And they have already exceeded every expectation we had for them.